I don't know. Maybe if he didn't make movies too.
See, I think he makes exactly the movie that I liked Deadpool 3. I liked how stupid it was. I have no problem with Ryan Reynolds. I think
Has he been
Deadpool's
in anything good though? Forget Deadpool because it's superhero, so it's just
sure.
good, right? Like, what was the last thing he was in that was good?
Ryan Reynolds movies. Free Guy was not good. The Proposal with Sandra Bullock, very
Oh, that
good.
is not a good
Oh,
movie.
it's such a good movie. Oh, it's a very good movie.
No, it's
Yep.
in that same genre. Like, there's so many just like it, but it's the most inferior version of those. And the only way it would end up on top is because Sandra Bullock is in it.
Yeah, Sandra Bullock's amazing.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah.
And the set is amazing because it's Alaska. It's a beautiful house.
Right, exactly.
Little town, quaint.
That Netflix time travel movie was peak Deadpool Ryan Reynolds, but I liked it. It was good.
Oh, the Adam Project?
Yeah, is that what that was?
Somebody should go to prison for that.
I like that movie.
Yeah, you enjoyed it, but you know how much it cost to make?
I'm sure you don't get to complain about the cost of stupid technology and things.
Why?
Because you are all in on AI wasting money on everything. Why
No, but
can't
that's not
Ryan
wasting
Reynolds?
money. I mean, this is a movie, dude. Like,
Detective Pikachu. Detective Pikachu was good. Detective Pikachu was
Pikachu's in it.
so
Pikachu's
good.
great. $115 million for a shitty movie like that.
To make what, that Netflix?
For 90 minutes. Dog.
That's not great. Yeah, I will agree with that.
And that's what I'm talking about. Like, how many families could get helped out with that? Instead,
No,
90,
you don't get to
90-minute movie.
you don't get to make that argument while supporting AI, putting people out of job for $500 billion.
No, that's not fair though, because I don't support the short term. I support the long term, which is technological utopia. But we have to go through the shitty time to get there.
Uh-huh.
I mean, look at this movie list. Some of these top movies, he wasn't even in. He's just cameo. I'm like, wait a minute. He wasn't in A Million Ways to Die in the West. It's an okay movie, but it must have been a cameo.
Yeah, it must have been a cameo. This is going to be the most bleeped cold open. Welcome to Acceptance Criteria, where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of how software gets made and how we can all do a better job together. My name is Kevin Thomas Euland, and across the chat from me is Andrew Greener. Say hi, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew. We're also here to get deeper on the human elements. I could go on for an eternity about people and how they think about the process of building complex systems. And I can't think of two better people to do that than Kevin and I.
Fortunately, we're looking for third opinions, so if you've got a topic you'd like to come discuss or rant about, drop us a note and we'll see if we can get you on a future episode. You can go to acceptancepod.com/guest and submit your ideas. And a quick reminder, whether this is your first episode or you've been listening for a while, we wouldn't say no to your going and dropping 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leaving us a nice review. And if you want to leave us a bad review, remember the name of the podcast is The Thrilling Adventure Hour. Also tell your friends if you like the show and that they should check it out. Some of the best podcasts out there grow by word of mouth, and we'd much appreciate it.
45% on Rotten Tomatoes, dude.
Okay.
I'm judging you, man. Fucking The Proposal. I watched it like 6 weeks ago, dude.
The Proposal's so good.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it because I think it's Sandra Bullock. There was a time I loved Sandra Bullock.
It's in her Miscongeniality era. It is a very good,
But it also, she plays the bee really well, right?
Right.
And her turning is endearing.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about the movie, but
Right.
not much else. Oh, I like Oscar Nunez too from The Office. He's in it. I liked his character.
Yeah. You gonna go back to your script?
Yep. Oh, sorry. I didn't know I was Mike. Oh, sorry. And a friendly reminder that we are always interested in hearing questions directly from you, our listeners, especially for our segment User Stories. If you've got a scenario you'd like help with, whether it's working with a problematic engineering or product team member, trying to navigate the never-ending pitfalls with agile processes, or you just can't understand why your favorite app is evolving away from what drew you to it in the first place, we're here to talk it through with you. You can send those questions to acceptancepod@gmail.com or submit them on the Discord in the User Stories channel, and we might be able to help on a future episode. And we're happy to keep it anonymous so no one can trace it back to you if you end up talking to a coworker or something.
On this week's show, we'll be talking over some recent news stories from the world of tech.
Blah blah banter.
It's been a minute since we actually recorded anything, and a lot has happened in the past 29 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the world now, though? Is it is AI speeding things up and Trump, new president? It's just a busy time, right?
Yeah, I definitely think we've talked about this on, I don't know if it's actually made it to episodes in the past, but anytime I go look at what are the news stories we should be talking about, every tech news site is just AI. This is the next thing that AI is trying to do, and it's all stupid all the time.
Oh, I love it. Some of it is it's interesting, the correlation between governments and tech right now too. I know we're going to get into some of the stories around social media, but it's interesting. It's almost like the internet's trying to find its place in the constitution, right? Freedom of speech, and well, first of all, Americans need to understand what that actually means, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like it's a weird time period. It's like first 50 years of the internet, and now as leaders change, private sector's actually responding. They're turning features off and on, right, based on who's in power right now.
Pretty
Very
much.
strange.
Yeah, it's not great. But before we get to all of that, let's take a short break, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. This is a segment we like to call Market Factors, where we talk about industry news stories and trends we're observing. Mostly it's an excuse to rag on bad decisions and argue with each other whether some new piece of tech is worth it. So we've got a bunch of things that have happened. I think the most breaking news this week that we happen to just be recording at the exact right time is DeepSeek is a new Chinese-based AI large language model that has fully upended the AI market in the last couple of days. I think towards the end of last year, actually, the company had started to release things, but on January 20th, they rolled out their DeepSeek R1 model. And basically, it takes an existing model called V3, and V3, from what I can tell, was trained kind of on ChatGPT. There's a bunch of signs and indications that they sort of just borrowed extensively from ChatGPT's existing training models, and so they were able to do it quickly. But also, it's China. They've been blocked through trade and whatever, I don't know, it's not trade embargoes, but the US has been blocking Nvidia from selling the AI GPU chips to China. And so this company had to figure out, how do we train a model without access to the high quality GPUs? And so it forced them to make a bunch of technological decisions to train things more efficiently without all of the high cost hardware. And so it was trained on, I had the stats here from an article from nextplatform.com, where they went and took a look at the white paper that DeepSeek released. 671 billion parameters with 14.8 trillion tokens, which is just that's the massive size of these LLMs, how much tokens are usually words, and just a massive amount of data. So it's the same size as ChatGPT, but apparently they had to optimize because they didn't have the GPU capabilities.
Maybe for the listeners then, when you say token, you said word.
I'm pretty sure LLMs have words as tokens. So you go and read a Wikipedia entry with 5,000 words on it, so you can teach yourself about the French Revolution. That's 5,000 tokens in the 14.8 trillion token database of these large language models. So it seems to be comparably sized to ChatGPT and Meta and all of these companies' LLMs. But because they didn't have the hardware power, because Nvidia was blocked from selling to China, they had to get around it. And it turns out, actually, maybe trying to win the AI race with China by blocking their access to hardware actually was bad, because it forced the engineers to get smarter and say, okay, how would we be more efficient and effective? And so there's a bunch of things I can barely understand. I read a bunch of the white papers. I have no idea what half of the things are and all the unique strategies, but they apparently had to create some pretty unique tactics to go and do all of this. So a guy on Twitter at Word Grammar reviewed the white paper and started going through and trying to figure out what happened. One of the things he looked into was, how did DeepSeek train so much more efficiently? And the answer is, they used formulas to predict which tokens the model would activate, then only trained those tokens. They needed 95% fewer GPUs than Meta, because for each token, they only trained 5% of the parameters. So they went and basically, I don't know what that means in terms of how you possibly do that. You read every, 1 out of 20 words in a Wikipedia article and figure out how to teach the model about the French Revolution that way. I have no idea how that actually actually works, but it's apparently hitting all of the same benchmarks as the GPT-o1 model and the Meta and Anthropic models. So whatever method they came up with to do it seems to have worked out pretty well. The other thing that they had to do is because they had such limited hardware, they had to figure out how to do this on what are called H800 NVIDIA chips, which are apparently the last NVIDIA chips China was able to get their hands on. I don't know why NVIDIA's latest, more powerful chip is the H100. It seems counterintuitive that the H100 is more powerful than the H800, but that's what it is. And so the DeepSeek V3 paper that they released at the end of the year talked about how they did all of this. And there's a bunch of math in here about 2.6 million GPU hours on a bunch of different pieces of hardware, and they describe how that all works. And so they said basically at the cost of $2 per GPU hour, if that is the cost, if all of the math that this company is claiming is true, then it costs them $5.6 million to train the V3 model. And where ChatGPT and OpenAI and Meta have spent tens of billions of dollars on training their models, and the GPU costs and draining water out of communities to cool the GPUs and trying to open nuclear factories to power the GPUs, like if this company really has done what it says it's done, then it took 1/10 to maybe 1/20th of the hardware and power requirements. And that's insane. That is like, what is the US market doing? Why is the US market a factor of 10 to 20 times more expensive and taking more consumption of resources to get the same result? And yeah, it has fully blown up the AI market. NVIDIA stock was down 17.2% earlier in the week. I think some of it's rebounded, but for a while there, it wiped out $1 trillion in the AI market because investors were reacting to, why on earth would we give you $100 billion to train the next model when these guys over here claim to have done it for $6 million? Now, it's China, so we're trusting the word of the white papers that they've released. The next step for a lot of people is to go and actually try to do it. It's all open source, so unlike OpenAI and Google and Anthropic and Meta, these models are out there for anyone to try and replicate. So pretty quickly, people are starting to implement this and see if the claims are true. But if they're true, if you really can do this at a fraction of the cost, then the entire market cap of the US-based AI economy is ridiculously overblown and shouldn't be this expensive. And Trump trying to do $500 billion for the Stargate AI, blah, 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 is a massive waste of money. And why do we need to do that? So fascinating things to pay attention to and keep monitoring as they keep doing this. Kevin from the future, while editing this episode, just popping in to say the day after we recorded this, a group independently took the open source library of this new DeepSeek model and tried to recreate the results by training it themselves. It cost them $30. 30, like an insanely small amount of money. So other people are starting to validate that, yes, this does seem to be a legitimately cheaper way of doing all of this. All right, back to the episode.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. I'm just talking to DeepSeek right now, trying to get, to spill the beans. But yeah, it's pretty confident. I mean, it's not Ryan Reynolds confident, but it's I can handle multi-turn conversations, maintaining context over long interactions, which makes me feel more conversational and human-like. I like that. Then I can say things like, do you remember last Tuesday when we were hanging out? Like, that's great, right?
Uh-huh.
I love that.
There's apparently strategies that they employed that said because they took shortcuts earlier in the model training process, they had to make up for that in other things. And so it is much more of a reasoning bot because it had to figure out how to actually, like, it doesn't have all of the answers pre-stored in memory. So it actually has to know how to do the math equation or write the code that you're looking for. And so the way they trained it was different. And there's apparently a thing, a bunch of people are like, oh, we've been thinking about doing it that way, but no one bothered to try to do it that way, apparently. But yeah, there's a bunch of things built into this bot that are apparently smart, innovative ways to solve the reasoning and problems. Now, what it doesn't solve is hallucinations. What it doesn't solve is what it doesn't solve is taking people's jobs. So this thing is still a theft bot. It is still going to put people out of work, but it is at least vastly cheaper. And if it screws Silicon Valley in the next year and fully craters that part of the industry, then maybe, I mean, I'm not actually going to be okay with it because I still don't think that we should be letting technology companies put people out of work. But I mean, if this little Chinese startup can screw Silicon Valley billionaires a little bit, maybe I'm okay with the next 6 months.
Yeah, I think it's interesting in a way. I wonder if it's indicative. Does it stress the difference in culture? Like in America, we're wasteful, right? Like there's just no two ways about it. Like business, just everything, right? From the grassroots of how big our ice cream servings are. So are we just witnessing like a false economy in the AI
Right.
space where it's like America's just sort of throw shit at it, throw as much, get as much money as you can.
Right.
Whereas, and then now we're getting like these specialist groups who are like, actually, it's really not that complicated. If you actually use your brains
Right.
and dig a little, there's actually a cheaper, more efficient way of doing it. So it could be kind of interesting in a way. I'm not pro China, but it's one of the reasons why I'm kind of pro China.
Well, but it's one of those things like this is the same thing that happens when a monopoly just simply has full control over the market. When you have the 400 data centers that can do whatever you need to, your brain doesn't have to get creative. Versus if
Right.
you're in a startup mentality mode and you're like, I have $5 million for the next 2 years. What creative thing do I need to do to get this feature out the door without spending any money? You write better, more intelligent, interesting code because you're on a budget. And it turned out China was on a GPU budget and had to get creative to do all of this kind of stuff. Where Sam Altman was just like, just give me another $100 billion. I'm just going
Yeah.
to keep on the current path and not think creatively.
And that's you and I have experienced that for a few decades now, right? Surely, like the development asks at the end of the year. I'm like,
Right.
20 people, 20 guys. Like, can you imagine like when we were a
Show me the
startup?
plan.
Yeah, like 20. What would we have done with 20 people?
Right.
We
Exactly.
we could, we could have had three startups, right? Like,
Right.
yeah. It's so easy over here to just pull out the checkbook and
Right.
but I love this because it starts to address some of your concerns too, right? Like you can do more with less. So
It
now we're
addresses
saving the
some of my
planet too.
concerns. I mean, yes, there is a version of my concern is actually the only thing that happens is Trump locks down, strips it out of the App Store, says you can't use any Chinese based AI tools. And now Sam Altman has smarter technology options to just throw all of the current GPUs against. So, in fact, actually, what's going to happen is they're still going to spend $100 billion. They're still going to try to build nuclear power plants or burn more fossil fuels. They're still going to try to use Colorado's water to or Arizona's water to cool their GPUs. I'm worried that actually it's possibly good that this is like Silicon Valley loves to be disruptors until someone else disrupts their own industry. Like these guys might sort of fully change things. I'm worried they don't change anything, that actually what happens is Silicon Valley just says, cool, thanks for the free tech. We're now going to make all of our models work this way and still spend $100 billion unnecessarily. So I don't know.
It's a good sign though, right? Like because I mean there's some really talented open source developers, right? Who are gonna latch on to projects like this. And the
Right.
cool thing now is, hey, Trump wants to block it. Cool. I create my company somewhere else, right? Like there's nothing you can do to stop me from using open source, right? Like
I mean, there probably are things that they're going to start saying that they need to do. They want to tell you what porn you can watch. They want to tell you what things you can say on social media. The likelihood that this ends in 2 years with freaking ISPs being told what traffic you're allowed to serve from what places so that we can try to become insular, like, I don't know. Nothing is real anymore. Trump in the last week has decided that he is a god emperor and can do whatever he wants with no checks and balances. I don't know, man. It's Sam Altman wants what he wants, and he bankrolled things with Elon. I don't know.
I can't even say this with a straight face, but Trump has done more in a week than any US president pre 1400s.
Wrong century, but sure.
I know.
Yeah.
I was trying to be as accurately Trump as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm pretty sure he doesn't know when the country started, but
No.
yeah, I like this. I like the disruption. I like the
I like the fact that the theft bot got stolen from and they're all pissed about it. And it's like, yeah, guys, this
yeah,
is what disruption is. This is when you enter a market that didn't need disrupting and fully screwed a bunch of people. The Chinese showed up and disrupted your little AI economy.
yeah.
And good. F you guys. You
Yeah, I'm
deserve.
good with that. Like, I think it always comes across that I'm on the side of big companies, right? But I'm actually not. I'm actually like this is a perfect example where I'm like, I love this disruption because yeah, the smartest guys are not the ones that are running these big companies, right?
No, not
So
at all. Exactly.
I love to see what's going to happen next. When I like the hallucinations too, dude.
No, the hallucinations make it unreliable. This is the thing that we'll talk about at some point if you want to turn that blog post
You know,
into an episode, but I don't know how
it's
you
good,
do
man.
It's not
It is
good. You
because Isabel
can't
asked me the other
rely
day,
on it.
you wanna play pickleball?" But I heard you want hot dogs for dinner, right? Like, these things
What?
just happen.
Yeah, but
Like, they
that's
happen
you
in
no, but you want this to be a thing. So I just edited this episode. You were talking about how great it'll be that some IT DevOps guy can write up a thing where Alexa pops open and says, "Hey, holy crap, the data center queue number 4 is down. We need you to do a thing." And he's able to just voice command and tell it, "Hey, pause all, processing queues until I can go and take a look at it." You want these scenarios where this AI is helping do things well
Yeah.
for people. Your article on RAG and the ability to have it be a part of microservices infrastructure, while it hallucinates, you either have to be so specific in your instructions that you are engineering nearly the same amount of code you would have engineered without the model, or you have to account for the fact that 1 out of 10 things
Yeah.
it won't understand, and rather than telling you, "I don't understand," the O1 model is the most deceptive model they've ever created, and they know that they don't have a solution for it, and so you're going to have to write in a bunch of checks that somehow say, "How do I validate that the AI isn't hallucinating and not doing the task I wanted it to?" You're not saving yourself any time. It's still a problem.
But I don't mind the hallucination. I do think that it should be dealt with. I like the hallucination. Actually, shouldn't it just be another model anyway? Like, just throw more AI at the hallucinations, right? Like, and then the AI is just gonna look and be like, "That can't be right." I don't even do anything with oranges every day.
But this is one of the things that the DeepSeek model did, is it added in that self-check capability. So it does try to do its own self-checking, and there's a
And that's
version of
fine.
RAG which tries to provide itself the extra context to do that. My concern is they don't have, even when you give it the self-check, even when you give it the RAG capability to know, here's the additional data sources I want you to use for all of this, the problem I have is the O3 model, or whatever it is we talked about a couple of episodes ago, is fundamentally trying to deceive you because its reward system is based on you believing it has completed the task effectively, and so it has built-in incentives to deceive you. So there is no current solution architecturally to handle the hallucination. So your automation of the microservices can't ever work, because 1 out of 10 requests failing is catastrophic failure. That's an unacceptable error rate. That's not five
Nah,
nines.
it'll be fine.
No.
It'll be fine. It goes back to the thing that we learn through failure, right? Like we'll learn something through the hallucinations. I'm good with it. It's
No.
evolution. Like, we were never going to release AI version 10, right? In the beginning with no problems. It's like it's evolving. Dude,
But
in less
you
than 2 years, it's evolved faster than an OS. It's going, man. It's awesome. I love it. They're fixing
but
shit all the time. Like, there's so much positive news about it.
they're not fixing this one. You're sticking your
Oh,
head in the sand because you think 150 years from now it's good for people. You're not adjusting the fact that they are, as an industry, agreeing that hallucinations is an unsolvable problem. And so you, I guarantee, as the CIO of an airline company, if an engineer came to you and said 1 out of 10 times it's going to fail, and you're contractually obligated because planes are flying through the sky to have 5 nines of reliability, you would laugh that engineer out of the room.
I'm just going to see where it goes.
Sure.
I'm okay with that.
Uh-huh.
Tesla's crash, AI hallucinates, 1 in
Uh-huh.
100, not 1 in 10.
No, it's not
1 in
good.
100, 1 in 10 seems really high.
Okay, still not 5 nines. So
What's the ratio? Come on. What's the Let's see. The ratio 1 in a million, right?
no.
This seems high.
Even Google's AI response. How often do LLMs hallucinate? Google's AI. LLMs hallucinate all the time.
Meta 5%. Anthropic's Claude 2 8%.
Yeah,
Google's Palm
dude.
Chat. I mean, this
You
is
would
fine.
be fired immediately if you had a reliability score of 93%. Immediately.
If I had a what?
Immediately. A reliability. If you go back to your days in the airlines, if you told your partners in airlines that your software was only 93% reliable, you would be fired.
I mean, that's why retry logic is there, right? Like, even HTTP has retry logic because
You don't know to
packets drop.
retry. There's no indication in the result that it's a hallucination. There's no signal to you as the engineer that the hallucination is happening 8% of the time. ChatGPT says with its full voice an answer that is full of made up precedent for lawyers. It says with its whole voice that a fruit ending in UM is strawberrum. Like, come on, man. This is not a thing that's reliable for incredible numbers of cases. If you, as a software engineer, want to use Copilot to help you auto write some code and you're smart enough to catch the 8% of the time, that's a perfectly valid trade-off. You absolutely could make that trade-off. But that only works if you're a smart enough engineer. And too many people right now don't know to question what ChatGPT is telling them. And so they don't know the 8%. They didn't go to the foundational process of learning how to write the code. They're just trusting the AI. So we have an entire Gen Z and Gen Alpha do not know not to trust these results 8% of the time. They are fully just on board with this. And you're going to have a bunch of engineers showing up who don't know to look for the 8% and don't catch the problem. And you're going to roll out these bugs. It's a compounding problem that is not helped by this culture's disdain for education and learning things. They want the quick, easy answer.
That's the other thing I was going to say is, dude, humans don't give a shit if it's like hallucinate. Like, well, I mean, this country just voted in like the strangest 10 years, right? Like, it's the strangest 2 decades, 3 decades, right? In American, well, probably since
2000,
they got pulled into
since the
external
Supreme
conflict,
Court,
but
yeah.
we're going back a long time since the country was this divided. Half the country doesn't even want the truth. Hallucination rate's perfect for them. They don't even care.
Good luck to the Fortune 100 companies who end up having their financial system software fail 8% of the time.
Nah, I'll be fine. Hey, listen,
No.
we shouldn't even call it AI. We should just call it I, because it's smarter than half the country.
That's bad. That's
I'm
bad
just-
that it's smarter than half the country.
I know, but you're like, come on, man. Like,
But you're not
like
trying
we're
to
holding
like
AI to a standard we don't even hold ourselves to.
Yes. It's not a solution if it doesn't actually make things better. All it's
It
done is
does
make
make
everyone
things
stupid.
better.
All it has done
It's
is make
not
everyone
perfect.
stupider. No, it has actively made people dumber. People don't know how to write emails. ChatGPT was down this week for like half a day, and the panic in a bunch of people who got themselves into a job that they were not qualified for because they were using ChatGPT to do all of their work for them. We have made ourselves dumber as a result of using this AI, and that's bad.
Yeah, but they were dumb before, except they were sending their own dumb stuff. Now at least it's like AI's fixing it 97%
It's not
of
fixing
the
it.
time.
Yeah.
97%, 3% on OpenAI. So just use OpenAI. I mean, look at this, right? I got the numbers. AI models with lowest hallucination rates, right? Jipu, 1.3. Gemini, 1.3. OpenAI, 01 Mini, 1.4. I mean, these are low. DeepSync, 2.4. These are low. This is not bad. This
Terrifying.
is 2.5 times in 100.
Yeah.
Oh, this is good. Intel 2.6, Alibaba 2.8, Snowflake is 3.
Yeah.
That's good.
No, this is...
We are never going to agree on the hallucination.
No, because
rate.
I know I'm right that you would be fired if you delivered those results as a software engineer.
Maybe, but
No, guaranteed. You don't get to talk yourself out of this one.
AI. Like, think about it. I'm working for free, dude.
But you're not producing reliable results, so it doesn't matter. You're getting what you pay for. You're getting what you pay for.
9.7 times out of 10 I am.
No, man.
I'm doing it for free.
It doesn't matter.
I'm a volunteer, so
you can't. You're not going to put any.
screwed
You're
up.
not going to put any mission critical software on a thing that can't guarantee you.
I screwed up the last hour of Friday. I didn't get my timesheets done. That's it. Like, they shouldn't be doing mission critical stuff on something if the model has a low score rate, right? Oh, you should be checking. It's fine. It'll be fine. Hallucination's good.
No, we're never going to do the episode on your RAG article because I don't think people should be trying to do any of this automation when the hallucination rate is that high.
God,
Yep.
I hope Skynet. I hope you top the list for Skynet. I hope I record it when it happens too. So I just see like I see the red lights flashing outside, and then it just
Right. The drone strike through the window.
I'd have to do all the editing for that episode, though,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
How do I? Skynet, man, is taking names and numbers, though.
I'm sure it is.
Even Microsoft's is less than 3%.
Cool.
This is good.
Nope.
These are way better than what I thought.
Nope. All right. Google unveils mind-boggling quantum computing chip. So I thought this was interesting because it seems like they're actually getting quantum computing to do what it needs to do, but also I have questions. So quantum computing is this idea that a typical GPU or CPU in a computer uses ones and zeros because an electron has either flipped a gate on or off. And so literally all of technology today is just true or false. Is everything a 1 or a 0 on these tiny little chips? Quantum computing says you run into limitations of that. At some point, we can't make these little gates that we flip true and false smaller than like physical limitations of physics. So at some point, the next thing is in quantum computing, the state of a particle has multiple states. So it's not just 0 and 1. There can be up to, I want to say 64 possible states states that they think a particle can be in, and this has to do with quantum, probabilities of a particle existing here and somewhere over in the Andromeda galaxy is till you observe a particle, it doesn't exist, and it's Schrodinger's cat and a bunch of weird things. Schrodinger's cat, by the way, we all misuse that example. Schrodinger, when he proposed the mind experiment of think of the cat in the box with the cesium atom and it might be alive or dead, we use that example not to say that that's true, that the cat is simultaneously alive and dead, but to point out how stupid quantum theory is by saying, of course, we all know that the cat is either dead or alive. Anyway, so quantum computing is trying to take advantage of the fact that we could go beyond ones and zeros, and Google allegedly has done this thing with one of their quantum computers where it will take 5 minutes to solve a problem that currently would take the world's fastest supercomputers 10 septillion years, and that's 10 with what, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 24 25 zeros behind it, so longer than the age of the universe to calculate this answer that apparently this quantum computer calculated in 5 minutes. My question is how do we know that? Because if it would take us a normal computer longer than the age of the universe to get the right answer, then how do we know what the right answer is? Apparently there's a mathematical reason why you can know that, but I was like, okay guys, but
Alleged age of the universe, by the way.
oh, good grief. Are you one of those?
I am a person of faith, but I know it's
Great.
more than 2,000 years. But there were a few years before, there was BC, right? So
Yeah.
3,000.
Sure, yeah. I think it's 5000 BC, isn't it? So the BBC article that this come from has this quote, "This mind-boggling number exceeds the known timescales in physics and vastly exceeds the age of the universe. It lends credence to the notion that quantum computation occurs in many parallel universes, in line with the idea that we live in a multiverse, a prediction first made by David Deutsch." So Marvel is right, there's a multiverse, and quantum computing is actually because we're doing computing in Deadpool's universe versus Captain America's universe. I don't know, but it's super interesting. I don't know, like I think you and I have talked about, as soon as physics started getting into these weird things where they can't provide answers anymore, and I'm supposed to believe that, a photon or an electron or whatever the particle is simultaneously does 5 different things at once, like it breaks my brain. The only way the math works right now is if there's like 8 extra secret dimensions that we can't see or experience. There's a bunch of reasons why I'm like, quantum logic doesn't make any sense, and I'll be impressed if these computers ever actually do anything, but hey, quantum computing would be cool.
But superposition is fact, right? I mean, that's not even quantum theory anymore, right? Like, I mean, they've got photographs of particles in superposition, right? Like,
They physically can't. That would defy, that's the whole point of superposition, is as soon as they can't do
it
that. I
was in
think
the
they've
news this last week.
How? The whole point is the way that, so there's a thing where it's not observation. So I know that they've proved that the collapsing of the probability wave doesn't require observation, something else happens, but the whole point is if you observed it, it would force it to pick one of its
Oh,
superposition results.
team in China, 23 minutes. They kept something in a quantum superposition state. That's a
No, sure.
record.
Yeah. You can have it be in the superposition state, but you don't know which one it is. That's the whole point of the superposition, is it's both.
It's both, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the only way that that works and the only way that that theory is true is if M theory is correct, and there's, 11 dimensions, so 1 is time, so 10, so then 3 physical, so there's 7 extra dimensions that we can't see. Up, down, left, right, forward, back, time, and
But when you say it works, what do you mean? 'Cause I mean, like,
the math
they
doesn't
used it in a
math.
chip this week, right?
No, this is what I'm saying. No, you're missing my point. The math doesn't math unless unless M theory and a bunch of quantum calculations try to figure out how it all works. And all I'm saying is the math tells you something weird that we don't experience. The math tells you
Oh, yeah.
something that is goofy and weird, and I'm assuming that actually what's going to happen is in 150 years, the next Einstein is going to give us the theory that makes it make sense in the way that we observe the universe. I'm not saying you can't take advantage of what we think the theory tells us. I'm just telling you, like the theory seems weird. Why is the only way that your math works if there's a secret 7 other dimensions that I don't get to experience? I can't go.
Yeah, the dimensions thing is not what, like,
But it
I
leads
jump
into
into this world a
it
lot.
leads into dark energy and dark matter. Like it has a bunch of side effects that are goofy and weird.
Yeah, it does. The dark matter thing I follow. Well, that's fairly interesting. The size of the universe, the speed, the shape. It's all very confusing, right? Like,
Right.
it's only this week I found out the universe they suspect is expanding at different rates, right? Like, which is kind of weird. You
Right.
think most things,
But also, of course, like a river doesn't flow at the same rate, so I don't know why it would be weird that the galaxies that are closer to one another are pulling each other along versus the galaxies that are farther away. Like that's one of those weird things where they're like the speed of light is constant and the rate of the universe is constant because the math is so hard. We just need to stick a constant number in there, and it's like, yeah, but if you tried to calculate the H2O flow of a river, you wouldn't pick a constant number. The constant number would be generally correct because you could measure, transition over whatever, but at any given moment, the speed of the water over a bunch of rocks is going to go faster than the speed of the water as it's going through a long flat period, right? So, like, I'm not surprised that the universe is doing things differently, but that's because I don't understand the fundamental physics that's going on. But I don't know. I feel like we're too stupid. We're just a bunch of apes with chalkboards, and of course, we can't figure out how to write the math equation that tells you how the universe works.
you know what the dimensions are like to me in this conversation, and I don't hate the conversation. I just don't. I don't ever get into the dimensions. Maybe I think about the fourth one.
Yeah, time being a dimension is weird. Why can't we go back in time if it's a dimension? But okay.
Yeah, yeah, and I almost feel like physics, and no offense to physicists listening, but it's like a catch-all bucket, right? Which is like we don't understand it, so we're going to throw it in the. There must be more dimensions, and when we can access those dimensions, all of these things will come back out, and we'll figure them out. We'll tell you why all of this is
Right.
the case, right?
And also, like, was someone just doing the math and they were like, well, okay, 6 dimensions didn't do it. Let me try 7. Nope, 7 didn't do it. Let me try 8. Like, it's weird.
It is, yeah. It wasn't it. I'm trying to think of something recently I was reading. Maybe it was about Edison. It
Hmm.
was about making the math work, right? Like the difference between creating the math in the beginning and then just making the math work to fit somebody else's previous work. And
Okay.
I don't want to accuse Edison of doing it, but it was something in the last 6 weeks, the last couple of months. I was reading about how a lot of the theories early, 1900s, late
Right.
1800s, they were just making the math work, right? Like it's like, oh, this doesn't work. All right, cool. Let's change it, make the math work
Sure.
to answer something complex, right? And then, which is fair enough, because then the next 150 years, smarter guys come along and correct it and blah blah blah, right?
Sure.
The quantum thing scares me a little bit because I'm sort of in that, does one minute piece of matter that's not supposed to be in the universe create the butterfly effect? And it's just you you overstep memory, right? Like you just bath the system.
Yeah, there was so when the particle accelerator in Europe, CERN, when they turned it on for the first time to do one of the experiments, the physicists were like, hey guys, by the way, it's like not gonna happen, but there's a chance that actually when we turn it on, it develops a micro black hole, and the micro black hole immediately consumes the entire Earth. You won't even ever know that we screwed up because it will happen so quickly that it'll
Oh yeah.
just destroy the planet. But there's also things like neutrinos, which are these like tiny little particles that only ever interact with the Earth once every 10,000 days because their frequency doesn't tend to interact with matter or whatever it is. But also a quantum computing chip is going to be the one place you probably don't want that neutrino to interact with. And so like how many of your calculations are going to go fine? And then it turns out actually the one time the neutrino interacted with a particle of X type that was in Y superposition all of a sudden causes the blip and something goes
Well,
catastrophically wrong.
and here's me putting my anti-big company hat on, or anti-government hat on here, which is rare, right? But do you really want somebody else like approaching the potential for understanding and controlling reality? Like, they're ways off, right? But
Right.
they're getting closer to a point where it's like, hey, guess what we can do?
Right.
We can make yesterday happen again. Right? Like, oh, we figured it out. Like, we can go back. Like, all you physicists were wrong. We figured it out. You don't really want like the current world leaders and companies having.
No, you really
I
don't.
just and
Yeah.
I'm talking about something that will never happen, but everything in between sucks too. Like they could really, I mean, may wake up one day and it's like, yeah, the light might look different today. We fucked up last night.
Right,
And
exactly.
so we blocked a bunch of stuff coming through the atmosphere and we're trying to figure out how to do it. And it's like,
Yep.
cool. Are you gonna load balance it on the way in? Is it gonna be rate limited or is it just gonna come out as all at once? It's like processed food all over again. You are putting into the hands of the guys who made processed food, not literally, but
Mhm.
but the same type of mindset. You're putting this And no offense to anybody who works in processed food industry, but actually offense to you. Yeah. Not to the workers, but the people who created that shit. It was
Uh-huh.
bad, right? And now we're figuring it out. The next 500 years, DNA is screwed up. This feels a little bit like that to me. America's the
Interesting.
worst country in the world to be in charge of quantum computing.
Yeah, this is. Did you either read the Three Body Problem, the book, or watch the Netflix series, The Three Body
Yeah.
Problem?
Yeah, it was
So
very clever. I like that show.
in that series, they have a thing where they figure out how to deal with the quantum superposition of a particle, and by doing that, they can control what they end up calling a sophon, which is this little microparticle that, because it moves at the speed of light and could be controlled remotely, basically you could mess with anything. You could mess with electronics, you could mess with people's brains, you could mess with a bunch of stuff, and it's like the last thing you need is Elon in charge of the thing that all of a sudden makes all the stars in the skies blink out and back on. Like when Elon turns into Mr. Burns blocking out the sun for all of Springfield, it's not great.
No, no, and that's exactly right, right? And this takes it back to gosh, what was his name? I don't even want to help with it because I'm going to be so embarrassed I have to ask. Oppenheimer.
Okay, sure.
Like, talk about a guy who was super conscientious, right? Like,
Hmm.
creates this bomb, sort of has a change of heart when he sees what it can do and realizes, like, yeah, we got to be really careful with this. We didn't
Right.
light up the atmosphere, but yeah, we got to be
Almost.
really careful with this.
Yep.
Musk is not, yeah, Musk is going to wake up at 10 a.m. and be like, hey, does anybody want to see the sky turn green today just for fun? Like, it'll be a Twitter poll, right? Like, what color would the sky
Right.
be, should be tomorrow? And a Twitter poll is going to be in the
Exactly.
hands of somebody who has a quantum computer. Yeah,
No, Starlink is going to roll out Sun Plus, and you will subscribe to getting sunlight available to your house. Like, it's not going to be good if these guys do that kind of thing.
that one I might not have a problem with. Because it's, well, yeah, because they're sort of stealing the sun. But if they were augmenting the sun, which is you can pay extra and get higher quality sun, that's fair dues. I'm okay with that.
Absolutely not.
They can do anything, but just don't mess with like the basics, the
Like
building blocks.
sunlight, the thing that is
No,
the
no, but that's what
key
I'm
part
saying.
of the entire food chain.
If they were augmenting, not blocking the sun and then charging me for it, but if they were like, hey, by the way, you can pay extra and you get this device that just creates better
Stand at
sun.
this location at 2 p.m. and we will give you an instant
Yeah,
tan.
yeah. That's okay.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
messing with the fundamentals, especially when you don't understand. Like if you can't explain this
Right.
shit without just creating buckets of dimensions over and over, and
Right.
if you can't tell me why we can't travel back in time other than sort of quoting, hey, it's just
Entropy for some reason.
yeah, entropy. Entropy. Can't travel back in time, entropy. That's it. 6 years of schooling and
Still no
I know more
explanation
than
why
you
a
because
dimension only has, yeah. It's a half a dimension. It's a half dimension. Why can I go forward and backward, left and right, up and down, but only forward in time? It's not a real dimension. I challenge this fundamentally.
but if they figure it out, can you imagine going on vacation to 2D? I mean, seriously.
I do not know why that would be good.
Oh, come on. You could go to 2D?
2D has got to be the most boring. It's only surpassed by 1D, but 2D is not there's nothing to see. There's physically nothing to see.
Well, I mean, you'd be like, oh,
Oh, look at that.
there was somebody stood over there a minute ago. I don't know where they are now.
I mean,
They
right,
went behind
exactly.
that thing. What thing?
Right.
Well,
What
I'm
thing?
guessing there's a thing there because they
Right.
can't see him anymore.
No, it would be. I do like I don't think anyone actually believes this, but it is kind of a joke I've seen on TikTok and Twitter, which is when they turned the accelerator on in CERN, we got shunted into Earth 2, and we're technically now in a different reality, which is why the Mandela effect is real, why we all think Sinbad was in that genie movie, and why, there's a universe where Hillary won and 2016 was very different, and it's because that's when they turned the particle accelerator on and we got screwed.
I appreciate the Mandela effect for its little trick, but the multiverse sort of many realities. I think I probably believe that is what's happening anyway.
I think there's an interesting version of like the energy that's in every particle in the universe is either infinite, or when it's not traveling at the speed of light has so much extra energy that it exists simultaneously in 400 trillion other universes at the same time. And so yeah, maybe there's a version of that makes sense.
Nihilism, mereological nihilism. Is that what
I
it
don't know what
is?
that is.
I think mereological nihilism. Let's see how good my memory is. Mereological. You'd have to be a nihilist to actually even know the term, right?
Correct.
Oh yeah, mereological nihilism. Okay, mereological nihilist is a philosopher who believes that no object have proper parts. This means that all material objects are mereological simples or objects without parts.
So what does that mean? Every single particle, I'm just a Boltzmann brain floating in time, inventing my past and
It's
existing for a brief
yeah.
moment.
I guess I liken it to like the problem with quantum mechanics is like the observer, right? Like when you read about like quantum mechanics, you're like, what is the observer? Who is the observer? Like, and
Sure.
when you first read it, you're like, oh, I'm the observer. Like it. So I think, and I could be wrong if I offend any mereological nihilists, but we're scattered, right? There is no. We're not all in one. We're not all in this zip code, right? Like the that makes up everything is all over the place and it just collapses to here.
The problem I have with all of this kind of stuff is we don't seem to have the ability to measure it, and we don't seem to have the ability to have an impact on it. So you might as well just turn that part of your brain off because there's nothing you can do about it. There's no way to hack the matrix code to get outside of that reality. Your perception of this reality is how your brain works, and therefore there's no point in thinking about it because you can't do anything about it. So why let the existentialism drive you mad? Just
Because the brain has shown signs that it can be hacked, right? So like they did that open brain test, and forgive me, like I can't give you the year at the university, but where they were stimulating the pain regions or the sensory regions in the brain and fingers, and they found that when they pricked the finger and stimulated the brain, they expected different readings, but the brain actually compensates for the time difference that it takes from the finger to the brain. And so the brain actually sort of has this trick, sort of relativity, right? Where they thought when they stimulated the brain directly, the same region, that the experience would be, lower latency. And it wasn't actually. The brain
sure.
fixed it so that it's the same. So, and there was just something recently in the last week about relativity in the human mind. There's a study right now about people who experience trauma. There's like a very small number of people who experience this effect of slow motion while they're in the moment, right?
Sure.
And so there was a doctor who was hit by a truck. This is a reading the news article. He was hit by a truck, and the whole thing happened in slow motion. So he dedicates his career now to researching this
Sure.
experience. Those things happen, though. The
But
brain
how
does
much of
that.
that is, but I think that's just because we're dumb apes who don't understand the world we exist in. I don't think we know how the brain works. I think there's a chance
Yeah,
that your
yeah,
brain is actually also the nerve endings in your finger. And our consciousness is
yeah.
bigger than we know about. And there's a bunch of things like there's the study that they've done with amputees, and you put them in front of a mirror. And when they don't have one of the arms, but the mirror makes them look like they have the arm, and you basically do a trick on the brain where you don't let them see the real arm, but they can see there's a weird thing that happens
Yeah.
where basically like you can touch one arm, but because the mirror tricks the brain into thinking you're touching the other arm, their brain tells them the other arm that no longer exists is being touched. So I just
Yeah.
don't think we know how the brain works. There's too much complex signal to noise ratio that we still don't understand. So yeah, this is where like I'm not convinced that half of this stuff isn't just because the human brain is a weird quirk of evolution. And
Dude, I'm pretty sure I have faith that we are connected to the quantum at the information level.
I think it's impossible to not. So if the math is any degree of correct, and the atoms in my brain simultaneously exist on other dimensions, and if you do the thought experiment of what a sphere going through a two-dimensional shape would look like, all you would see is an expanding line where it intersects with the second dimension. So our ability to know that there's something in the fifth dimension that is actually connecting all of us, like it sounds like, I know a bunch of physicists hate this woo-woo shit, but like genuinely you can't convince me that we don't know that, because we don't know how these dimensions work. And so who knows what goes on in the eighth dimension, that actually that's where love exists. Like who fucking knows?
Yeah. It's also, we get out of bed every day and that's just stuff we can't see. There's stuff we can't hear. There's stuff we can't smell, but it's there, right? I mean, like,
Sure, right, yeah.
dogs and cats hear stuff we don't hear. Like, and I'm not saying like we don't hear it, like we don't want it. It's like we
No,
don't
no.
hear
Like
it,
physically,
right?
we don't. Our brain invented the color purple. The color purple doesn't exist. It's a fabrication of our brain and our eyes being able to synthesize what's happening between the green cone, the red cone, and the blue cone. And yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that's not
Yeah, it's funny because I call my buddy sometimes over this stuff because he's like he's got a PhD in physics and like, but dude, what's right in front of my face? And he's like, sometimes nothing, man. It's okay.
Right.
Sometimes there's just nothing there. He's like, but there really is something there, dude. He's like, there really is. You know, he's like, it's there. He's like, there's so much shit we don't see, so much shit we don't hear. Like,
Yep.
just yeah, it's crazy to me. Like,
Anytime the James Webb Telescope sends back an image of something cool in a galaxy, I'm like 90% awed by how cool it is that we can see that level of detail somewhere trillions of miles away. But 10% of me is like, this is bullshit. I couldn't see that. If I was out there looking at that galaxy, that's not what that galaxy would look like because it's looking at it in infrared waves that we physically don't see. Like a bunch of these things that we get from Hubble and the James Webb Telescope are artificial colors. Like you go look at the Orion Nebula and you're like, oh, it's just a bunch of brown and blue smears. Like I can't see it that way. It's annoying. This is a rant from one of the Battlestar Galactica seasons where one of the Cylons is like, I got screwed with human eyes because some idiot decided to make a human Cylon, and I used to experience the world in all of the spectrums of light, and then some idiot stuck me in one of these flesh bodies that can't experience it that way. Like we're screwed by the weird evolutionary quirk that these are the cones we had in our eyes to experience what we call the visible light wave. That's just evolution screwing up and giving us limited photoreceptors. Okay, so this next one this is what you were talking about, right? How quickly is the universe expanding? Astronomers and theorists can't agree. So a CBC article, I'm quoting Canadians. All right, fine. Now new observations from the James Webb Telescope, published this week in the Astrophysical Journal, back up previous measurements that peg the speed of the expansion as faster than what the theoreticians believe it should be. The theorists get to look for one of the holy grails of science, new physics, which roughly translate as clean the blackboards, it's game on, we have no idea what we've been talking about. They know their old math was wrong, which means there's something out there new to discover. And yeah, I think this is where we were talking about, the number of dimensions and dark matter and dark energy and all of these things where they're kind of like, what we're observing in the universe doesn't match the equations, so every time that happens, we just invent a new dark something. Dark energy is why the universe is expanding faster than we thought. Dark matter is why the universe seems to be heavier than we thought. And now James Webb Telescope is saying, no guys, it's time to stop inventing new hand-wavy things. You need to find the new math. We need the new Einstein. I think that's cool. I think it's good that we're finally getting, I don't know that it'll happen in our lifetime, but it must have been cool in like 1920 to find out light works a different way and Einstein's whole theory was weird and cool and new.
yeah, yeah, we're at this weird crossroad. Like it's just all happening at the same time. It's almost like I felt that way about COVID too. I was like, how are they going to change the model, right? Like
Right.
the 5-day work week, the commute into the office, there was never a good way. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I was thinking to myself, like, God damn, that was perfect, right? Like if you needed to change the way everything worked,
Right.
right? Like just nature fosters into it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the physics I think it's such an exciting time to be alive, and actually be alive and die before some of the exciting stuff, because now a lot of my dreams, I'm like, yeah, they're gonna happen, man. There are gonna be people who just keep the brain.
Yeah.
And if we keep going, they're gonna figure out how to bring me back too.
You
Right?
just need to go the Walt Disney route of freezing your head.
It's not even the freezing the head. They're just going to figure out, like, oh, we can jump to a multiverse at another time.
Sure.
And
Yank that brain out, kill that Andrew, and pull him over into this one, right?
exactly.
Well, that's the nice thing. If the multiverse is infinite, then there is no such thing as murder because you exist in all of the infinite ones. So if you kill the Andrew in one of the infinite other universes, it doesn't really matter because there's an infinite number of Andrews. So you could murder your old brain and bring you into this universe just fine.
Yeah, I'm good with that. The other Andrews all suck.
They're kind of mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
All right, well, that's going to do it for us on this episode of Acceptance Criteria. To read articles we've written on similar topics to the ones we talk about here, head over to the blog at acceptancepod.com. You can also follow us on most apps. We're at AcceptancePod. We'll post links to show notes and any articles from the blog over there. I highly recommend following us on Blue Sky. We're now over there too. We're also building a community on Reddit at r/acceptancecriteria and on Discord. You can find links to both in the show notes and on the blog, and I promise we'll be moderating the crap out of them to keep it a nice little slice of the internet. For now, I'm Kevin Thomas Euland, and you can find me on most apps at KThomasEuland. That's ULLAND.
and I'm Andrew Greener, and you can find me on most apps at Criteria Greener. That's GREINER. And this has been Acceptance Criteria. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to hearing from you.